Hi guys, hope you're doing well. In this video I'm going to show you how to draw a couple realistic water drops. First, let's start off with looking at the structure of a water drop. So here I'm drawing just a circle that represents the water drop, and in this case the light will be coming from the upper left, and as the light hits the water drop it develops a small highlight, which I represented here with this small circle, and then as it passes through the water drop it actually bounces off the inside of the water drop and then produces a shadow on the opposite side of where the light's coming from. And just for reference, I've added some reference water drops here on the left. So here's where the shadow goes. And looking at it another way, this is kind of in profile view. So the water drop is on a surface. So here's the water drop. Again, the light's coming from the upper left. Here's your small highlight. And then the light will come through the water drop and bounce off of the opposite side from where the light's coming from. And then here's where the shadow is. Now on to the actual drawing. So the first water drop I'm drawing is just pretty much a round water drop. So here I'm drawing a small circle that's going to be the outline of the water drop. And try to get it as round as you can, but as you saw in the reference photo, water drops are all different shapes and sizes, but this one I just want to be pretty round. I'll go ahead and drop the reference photo of the water drops back in. I'm just continuing to refine the shape of the water drop, adding in where the shadow goes. And I forgot to mention, this pencil I'm using for the first layer is a 2B pencil. Here's a small circle to where the highlight's going to be. I'm working in light strokes here for the first layer, just in case I want to erase something like I'm doing here with a kneaded eraser, just to refine and make sure I get the shape of the water drop the way I'm wanting it. And here I'm adding a little bit more pressure to the shadow area just to darken the value a bit. Now I'm putting down a light layer of graphite for the background, and what this will do is just help establish how light the highlights need to be once we get to that point. As I'm working on the background, I thought I would share a couple drawings where I've incorporated water drops into them. This first one is called Splash. So it's taken a little Monopoly man holding an umbrella, and the water drops seem to come off the paper and onto the background. This next one is called Drop in the Bucket. So it looks like a sticky note on a background and the water drops heading towards the bucket. Now I'm using a small blending stump just to smooth out the background. Being careful not to cross over into the water drop, just to keep the paper pure, so when we add the highlights it'll be pure white. And here I'm lightly going over the shadow area just to make the transition between the shadow and the background a little smooth, just to make it a little more realistic so it's not just a harsh edge. After you blend for a while, your paper stump will start picking up some graphite. So here I'm going to show you how I clean the paper stump off and at the same time sharpen it again to retain that sharp point on it. So here I'm just doing some blending like I was doing in the drawing, and you can see it picked up some graphite. And then I'll take it and rub it and at the same time roll it around just to cover all the edges, all the sides. And you can see it takes some of the paper off. It also cleans the graphite off and sharpens the point of the stump. So you've got a nice clean stump again, then you can go back to the drawing. The sandpaper I like using is 150 grit. It provides just enough rough surface to take just enough paper off to clean your stump. So here I'm starting to put some color in around the highlight, being careful not to cover up the highlight so we can retain that white paper surface. I put the reference photo back in just so you can kind of see where we're heading. And the dark that you're seeing in the water drop is actually from the surface that the water drops on. So it picks up whatever color that it's on. So it's on a gray surface, so you can see that it's picking up some of the gray area. I'm using a really light stroke here, just so we can get that nice soft transition from the darker area around the highlight to the lighter area to where the light is actually bouncing off the inside of the water drop. And once I get that light layer down, I'll use the blending stump to lightly blend and smooth it so it makes a nice smooth transition. And again, being careful not to blend into the highlight area. At this stage in the drawing, I like to stress patience. I always work in layers and not try to get to the final outcome in one layer, because it looks a lot better and you can get a lot smoother finish and a lot more depth when you layer it in. So the first layer was done and blended. Now I'm putting another layer on the background. So now that I've darkened up the background some, I need to go back and revisit the shadow. So here I've switched to a Lumograph black pencil. They just have a lot darker values in them. So I'm just going over the shadow area, being really careful. And you can see it really darkens up the shadow, provides that nice contrast for realism. Now switch back to the regular pencil just to darken up the area around the highlight a little more. Since I'm using the white of the paper as the actual highlight, You can always ask yourself, how do you make your lights lighter? And I like to answer with, just make your darks darker. And the contrast you get with your darker darks is really what gives you that realism that you're after. Now I'm doing just a little more light blending with the blending stump. And you'll find the more layers and the more blending you do, the smoother surface you get. So if that's really what you're after, in my opinion, layers are the way to go. Because each time you blend, the graphite gets into the tooth of the paper a little bit different, and it just gives you a much smoother outcome. And here I'm just doing some small refinements, refining the edge of the water drop. And as I'm drawing, I'm constantly glancing over at my reference photo, so I'll go ahead and drop it back in here. My eyes are constantly darting back and forth just to make sure I'm getting all the refinements, highlights, darks in the right spot. Just continuing to refine, and here I'm doing a really light stroke over the whole drawing, and what this does, it just kind of unifies the whole piece. Now I'm using a small paintbrush for some additional blending, and this gives you just a little bit softer feel than the paper stump does. Going back and adding a little bit more darks to the shadow area, because each time you blend, you actually pick up some of the graphite, which lightens it up just a touch. So I always like to go back in and give it another layer to get those real deep darks. Now I'm using the kneaded eraser formed into a nice sharp point just to bring out the highlight in the water drop, and then some of the lighter areas at the bottom edge of the water drop. Now with a nice sharp pencil, I'm going in and just refining the area, crisping up the edges around the lightest point of the highlight. And if you'd like to know what pencil sharpener I use to get these nice sharp points, I recently did a review on the sharpener that I use, and I'll go ahead and link that video in the description below. And here to finish it up, I'm just doing some more refinement blending with the nice sharp blending stump. Okay, so on to the second water drop. And this one, the water drop's going to be a little more of an elongated shape. And I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up a little bit. I'll still narrate and kind of walk you through the steps, but it's kind of the same steps as the first one, just the water drop's got a little bit different shape. So I'll give you a little guidance as we work through this. Just like in the first water drop, just use some light strokes to lay in the positioning of your water drop, and then establish the shadow area and gradually darken it up, and then establish your highlight area and then put some background in. Once you get the background in, you use the small blending stump just to blend it in. Then you put your darks around your highlight on the water drop and do some light blending. As you can see, since this is an elongated water drop, the highlight is actually elongated a little bit too. And just like the first water drop, using the kneaded eraser to pull out the highlights, using the Lumograph black pencil for the dark shadow areas, and then just kind of refine it as you go. Just more blending, more refinement with the pencil and blending stump until you get it finished. Well, this wraps up this video. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found it a little helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.